Hi, this is Pat Duckworth, the author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And my guest today is somebody who I met when we were both speaking at the Women Economic Forum conference in London last year. It feels like a century ago. But anyway, this is the first chance we've had to get back together so that I can find out more about her. So my guest is an expert in leadership and communication. She's worked with over 20,000 leaders at every level of management and leadership over 30 plus years. In the latter years, she's mainly been working with CEOs, SMTs, boards of trustees, and entrepreneurs. She believes that leadership has never been so important to get right for business and life, and the premise of conscious leadership is to communicate effectively through skillful speech. She's a twice published author, and her most recent book was published this month. So there's definitely something for us to talk about there. It's a big welcome to Julie Hogbin. Hi, Julie, how are you?
I'm very well, Pat, thank you. And thank you for inviting me onto this podcast, this recording. And interesting when you said we met last year and now we're in June. That feels like ages ago.
I know, I had to really think about that because it's like so much has happened since we met in London. Anyway, enough of this nostalgia. I really want to find out more about you and your entrepreneurial journey. So how did you start out? What was your first career?
Wow, my first career, I was thinking about this a little while ago actually. My first career was working in a clothes shop in the grand town of Woolwich, SC18, South East London. I left school I could legally leave school on the Tuesday. I walked down the high street on the Wednesday, started work on the Thursday. I'd gone from almost a straight A student to leaving the education system when you could at 16 without a qualification to my name. It was an interesting process.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but when I left school, it wasn't a question of would you get a job, it was which job would you have, because there were jobs.
Yeah, they were. You could just, I mean, like I did, I walked down the high street on the Wednesday and started work the following day. There didn't seem to be any issue with finding a job, getting a job.
My first job was in Topshop at Oxford Circus, but we'll gloss over that one. So moving on then, what happened next? Where did 16-year-old Julie go next?
Well, what did she do? 16-year-old Julie's mum didn't like Julie working in a clothes shop. She didn't like the manageress of the shop. Mum didn't like the manageress. So mum got me a job in the Woolwich Equitable in Woolwich at the time, so a building society. And mum had decided that it would be my future career. I could get a cheap mortgage and I would be there for life. And at that point, I was probably about, 17 and a half, maybe. And I just didn't like it. It wasn't what I was going to do for life. The appreciation of a cheap mortgage at the time meant absolutely nothing to me. But I think for mum, she knew that, she'd obviously had a mortgage. She knew the benefits of getting a cheap mortgage at the time. But she had my career planned out for me. And of course, Julie being Julie, went, no, not happening. Even then, it was a bit of a case of, I'm going to do what I'm going to do for right or wrong, to learn from it, all the experiences. But I was really, really good with figures. I mean, my brain could calculate numbers, and this is the absolute truth. And for anybody knows me, knows I tell the truth. My brain could calculate numbers and figures quicker than a calculator. If you gave me a calculation, I'd come to the answer before somebody would come to the answer on a calculator. So naturally, I went into accounts.
Oh, so was that your next role then?
Yeah.
How did that develop?
How did that develop? It developed, I left the Woolwich Equitable and I doubled my salary overnight, and I went to a company called Tunnel Refineries, which, for those that know the area, there was a big refining factory right down at the mouth of the Blackwall Tunnel. So again, South East London, because I'm born and bred in Kent. Southeast London. And for those of you at the time that used to go through the tunnel, it was the factory that made the horrendous smell. It was that place. And I went into there as a bought ledger clerk, doubled my salary overnight, went into there as a bought ledger clerk, then went into management accounts. And I stayed there for, I think I was actually there 9 years, but I was in 3 different positions. I've never stayed anywhere for long and been in one position. I've always done something different. So I was there for 9 years, ended up as part of the management accountancy team. And then I can't remember why I left there, but I then went into financial accounts. So year-end accounts, more than management accounts, monthly accounts. Management information. I went into financial accounts, and I ended up working for a company in just outside Petticoat Lane. It was an industrial sewing machine company. I went through various couple of roles to get to that one. And at the time, and this shows you in some respects how old I am, but in some respects how far behind the times they were, they had a wind-up ledger, manual pages, and as you needed a new page for a new month, you added one in and you wound it up. It was an incredible thing. I'm hoping it's in some museum somewhere. And as part of that, in that position, I went from, if you like, paper accounts to, although I'd worked on computers before, went to computerized accounts. So I saw them transition into computerized accounts.
So just quickly, when I first started work in Chancery Lane, they had comptometer operators there. I don't think anybody would know what a comptometer operator was now, but they had the cards that they used to feed into the machines. So we're both showing our age today. We'll start talking about floppy disks next. So you decided to leave there. What happened?
And I got a job in, there's a story to this as well. That's stories through my life. I got a job as a retail auditor. And I got a company car with that job. So I had a new car. And that was for, of all employees, the cooperative group, CWS as it now is. And they wouldn't tell me, the agency that I went through wouldn't tell me who the company was that I was going for an interview because it had such a bad reputation at the time. Really interesting. But interestingly, on the industrial sewing machine company, 2 months after I left, it shut down. It went into liquidation. Now, I didn't know that was going to happen, but 2 months after I left, everybody lost their jobs.
Wow.
It was incredible what happened.
So then you're working in the co-op and just CWS, and then how did that move on?
Well, so retail auditing, I was out, I was visiting all the branches, making sure that their systems and processes were, they were doing things right. I had to write a report at the end. And rather than, we would sort of told to go in, find out what was wrong, write the report and leave. Well, I didn't think that was fair. So I would go in, find out what was wrong, because you go through all the systems, all the processes, and then I'd help the manager or whoever it was put it right. I'd give them the training there and then to put it right. So when I wrote the report was more along the lines of, visited the store on this date, this is what I discovered. Oh, but by the time I left, it was right. And I would have an interview with the area manager at the end of my audit to talk to the area manager about how they could support their managers to get better. And through that whole process, from that, I then ended up they went from the old manual tills, again, I'm really showing my age, but from the old manual tills, we used to have to pull a handle to the electronic point of sale, EPOS, which is still what's going on today, the scanning system. And I, because of my background and because of enjoying working with people and training them, got involved in installing the cash office systems and then training the cash office people how to manage. And I learned by trial and error, because there were no manuals. I wrote the manuals. I created the processes and the systems to help people do all the finance within the business. So I did that, and as part of that, and this is how I got into learning and development. As part of that, I woke up to the fact that there was a team within the organisation who were training the store managers on how to manage. And me being me, God, I didn't actually think one of them was doing a very good job. So I said something to my friend. This particular individual left, and my friend, my colleague at the time, said to me, put your feet where your mouth is. If you think you can do a better job, go and do it. So I did.
Oh, wow.
And it was a walk into the complete unknown. I went from installing and training in financial systems to management development, leadership development, communication, how to get the best out of people. For me, it was a complete other world. And I did do better, because when I took the program out for graduate, and immediately I went into the role, they gave me the graduate training scheme to manage, to recruit and manage for. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can do this. Like, it was that swan, you know, serene on the top and paddling legs underneath. So I took the management training scheme over, and we used to provide them with an external qualification. We used to send them to Bromley College to do, at the time, it was an HND. And we went from a 3% completion rate, success rate, to 100%.
Wow.
Excellent. I mean, yeah. And you know what? All I did, Pat, was give them some of my time and attention. It's not hard.
Yeah.
And encourage them.
So did the company train you, or was this your own personal development that you were doing?
Yeah, my own personal development. When you're first, so I observed my colleagues. I went into a team. I observed my colleague. I knew how retail worked. I didn't know how management worked as such.
Yeah.
I went into it. I observed my colleague on a couple of programs, and then I got to run my own. And I remember it to this day. I was must have been 30 maybe at this point. I remember it to this day. It was managing conflict.
Oh.
God. And I thought, who am I to train anybody about managing conflict? I mean, where do I get that knowledge from? And I had a manual, and I was turning the pages. I was really professional in those days. I was turning the pages, and I turned 2 at the same time. So I completely threw myself off, completely panicked, kept going, and then just intuitively went back to the bit I'd missed. And to this day, that memory is so sharp in my head, so sharp. And then I went through, I personally can't do anything. I can't train anything or teach anything or coach anything or mentor anything if I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's just incongruent for me. I have to be able to do the thing. I have to have practiced it, played with it, put it into real life. Otherwise, it doesn't. Who am I to stand at the front if I'm not doing the thing I'm training?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that depth, isn't it, that really communicates itself. So at what stage then did you transition into being a independent and an entrepreneur?
It was interesting, because everything's interesting, but it was interesting. We got the opportunity. The cooperative group merged with one of the other co-ops. There's loads of them, and they started to merge, and they were 2 big ones coming together. So there were duplicate roles. And what happened was, we were given the opportunity of a redundancy package. So you could take it and get an enhanced package, or you could apply and get a different job within the organisation. And I looked at the restructure and thought, I don't want any of those roles. It's just nothing I want to do. They changed the whole thing, and I didn't like it. So I went for the opportunity of the redundancy package, and as part of that, they gave us an outplacement consultancy. So what would I have been at this point? Probably late 30s. I'd been married, I'd been divorced, so I was on my own. It was me, back living with my mum in a new relationship. It was chaos, this point of my life, really. They gave us an outplacement package, so I took it. And it's really interesting. Both myself and a colleague did exactly the same thing. We went to this outplacement consultancy, and it was the consultancy company was Coots. As part of that process, she said to me, what do you want to do? I said, I'm going to go and work for myself. I know what I do. I'm good at what I do. And she said I was one of the only people that actually already had a plan going forward. So I went through the whole process with that. I took every opportunity I was given and made a few. Didn't realise what I was doing at the time, and ended up as a marketing consultant for Wrights Coots, because they then merged. And I got to work with people who were going through the same process as I was, telling them how to market themselves. I'm like, how do I do that? Anyway, I did that for a little while. I had a week off, and then I started my new role as in self-employed. It was really, that taught me a lot about change. So I went to work for Wrights Coots as a consultant for Wrights Coots. That then got me involved in a massive change management process for the Department of Work and Pensions, but through PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I did that for 3 years until I did it for 2 years. I did it for a bit longer, and then thought, I don't agree with what's going on now with the change program. So I left there. But as part of that whole process with PricewaterhouseCoopers, I got some of the best training I could possibly get on coaching. Coaching back then, 30 plus years ago, was not a known thing in the UK. It was quite big in America, maybe okay in Australia, but it was new to the UK. And I got some of the best training I could possibly ever have got through PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Fantastic. So then the next 30 years, we have to scoot through here. The next 30 years is you developing as a coach, and and working independently with your own company?
Yeah, working independently for a lot of it. I also worked for 11 years as a partner in a learning and development firm. So I was a partner in the firm, and we worked exclusively with the non-profit sector. So, and I did a lot of work for charities. My values then really shone through about who I wanted to, be supportive of, if you like, in that field. And I worked there for about 11 years, and then I left that. There's a lot of reasons behind that. I left that in 2011 and just launched myself into this property investing, forex trading, internet marketing, this world, the true entrepreneurial world. Didn't even know it existed up until 2011 in reality.
Wow. There's so much we could talk about. This is Pat Duckworth, and today I'm talking to Julie Hogbin. And so, Julie, you just briefly touched there on your values. Tell me a bit more about your values and how they drive your business.
Oh, it's again, I didn't know back then what I know now. And my highest, so going back to, when I worked in the industrial sewing machine, my highest value is honesty. So when somebody is not honest, I don't know how, I have to confront it almost. So how does that lead me to operating within my business? Everything I do is honest. And I quite often find myself saying, and this is a true story, and I'm thinking, why do I say that? Because I know it's true, but I think there's such such a distrust in a lot of the world around people being honest and authentic and transparent. And I think I have a feeling that I need to say that because everybody is. So that's my highest value. The second highest value I have is freedom. So that, it's one of those things. I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it. That doesn't mean I railroad everybody, but I can't be stuck to a 9-to-5 job. I can't be stuck in one place. It just doesn't, it almost kills my soul. It's really interesting. So when you really get into values and how they transmute into behaviors, I mean, it's fascinating. And I'm doing a lot more on it. I'm doing a lot more with it now than I probably ever have done.
So what would you say now that your purpose in life is?
My purpose in life, I write this every morning. So I answer 8 questions every morning. And the first one is, what am I grateful for? That kickstarts me off onto a good place most mornings, not always, but most mornings. My purpose, it's the last question I answer is, what am I here for? And I started writing this about 2 years ago, but I didn't really connect with it, although I was writing it. But what I write is to connect the dots and create the links for me and others to build and maintain true wealth. And when I say true wealth, I mean health, as in true wealth. So health, wealth, and happiness. And with all the experiences I've had and with everything I've done since 2011, there are so many options out there for people to create their own wealth, you know, monetary and health-wise and happiness. We can't rest on our laurels. You know, not every one of us had or has a job where you get an index linked pension. You know, there's few and far between of those left. Do I believe I'm ever going to get a government pension, you know, based in the UK, and we have them at the moment? No, I don't. If it had been a few years ago, I'd have retired by now with a government pension. It's now been pushed back to 67. So do I think I'll ever get there? Physically, I will. You know, will there be money left to give me a pension? No. So it was one of the reasons in 2011 that I changed what I do.
Yeah.
Because I did have a bit of a pension. Was it enough to keep me how I wanted to be kept? No. I had to do something different. And it's been a journey, and it's been an exciting one.
Yeah, definitely. So what does success mean to you now? How would you define success for you?
That changed. It has changed over the years. Success to me was always freedom. You know, comes back to my highest value. And what does freedom mean to me? It's doing what I want, when I want, how I want, being able to travel the world. I've done a lot of it. I want to do that. You know, currently can't do that, but want to do that more. So success means to me, it's not what it used to be. Success would have been for me a massive house. It would have been a brand new car. It would have been eating out at the finest restaurants and buying expensive shoes and clothes. It's just not that anymore. The material aspect of life and keeping up with next door and the Joneses and the Smiths and, you know, as the saying goes, it's just not important to me anymore. Success for me now, my current goal, I'm going to put it out there because I am working on it, is for me to positively impact. So that is basically getting in front of with a positive message to a minimum of 250,000 people by the end of 2020.
Yeah. Good goal.
Yeah, I know. And I'm looking at it going, oh, how do I do that? Oh, but it's making me think, it's making me learn, it's making me get out there. So, and that's global.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm counting up my numbers.
That's why we have to keep putting our stuff out there and impacting and influencing people. So what would your top tips be for new entrepreneurs?
Do you know what? For new entrepreneurs, I've seen a lot of this recently. So yeah, we're currently in lockdown. And I am talking to people who don't have enough money in the bank to pay their mortgage for a month, put food on the table for a month. They don't have that money. So a top tip, and this is something I learned when I was doing the Rights Coach self-marketing program. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, work out what you want to do before you launch yourself into it, not like I did. Work it out, do the learning before you start to do the learning before you start. Don't pay anybody a bucket load of money. You know, you need a coach, you need a mentor, you need a program of some description, but and this is the top tip, 6 months money to survive on before you launch, before you leave your job, before you stop any regular income coming in. 6 months money behind you. Work towards it, because you may be lucky enough to have a quick win, you may, and you may not. And coming from scarcity with no money versus coming from abundance with money behind you makes a massive difference to the results you'll achieve. Massive, huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So people watching, Julie, who want to find out more about you, how do they do that?
Follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook. I've got a page on Facebook. LinkedIn is Julie Hogbin. They're both Julie Hogbin. My website's juliehogbin.com or clavum.global. They're both being revamped currently. Yeah, I'm on any social media platform, whether I'm as active on some of them as others, but I'm on them.
And so your newest thing is your book, which has just come out. What's your book called?
The second book I've written is called Stress, the Reality. So again, it came about because, you know, current lockdown, I could see lots of people becoming very anxious about stuff. And in reality, and I've suffered from stress twice, very different reasons, very different symptoms. You'd think I'd have learned the first time, but the second time it was something completely different. So stress, the reality. None of us need to be stressed. We really don't need to be stressed. As long as we know what it is, know how it affects us, because we can't do anything about it. Our body does it for us. So learning the strategies, learning the processes, learning the systems to not be stressed, which comes back to the skillful speech, because most of it is around having a conversation with somebody to make something different, to create a different future. A lot of it boils back down to us having conversations with people or getting ourselves out of a situation that we find ourselves in. And a lot of that is around having a conversation. There's much more to it than that. But yeah, it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are. I've seen some of the worst incidences of stress I've seen in young men, be about 24, 25. I've seen it in women of 30. I have seen it in women of 60. I have managed, coached, trained, you know, people through this sort of stuff. We just don't, it doesn't have to happen.
Yeah. And it is taking the time to recognize those warning signs and to take action. And whether that action is to slow down and do the work that you know you do that helps to calm you, or you need to reach out for help and talk to somebody else. The important thing is that you do something about it. This has been great, Julie. Let me just recap what we've learned today. We've learned that entrepreneurial journey is it comes in all shapes and forms, and it doesn't have to be a straightforward trajectory. Also, having a plan before you set out to be an entrepreneur is a very good thing, and that very good tip of having 6 months money behind you before you start. Otherwise, you're coming from a place of lack instead of a place of abundance. It's a very different energy and leads to very different outcomes. Thank you so much, Julie. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me on, Pat. Thank you. I've enjoyed this. Thank you.
Good. I like these good conversations. And to all our viewers, keep watching out for more of these interviews with amazing entrepreneurs. And I'll see you next time.